Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. Joining us live via Skype right now is Corie Whalen. Corie is a spokesperson for Generation Opportunity, an organization advocating for economic opportunity for 18 to 29-year-olds through less government and more freedom. Corie, it's good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
All right, so we were talking earlier about youth unemployment. I know Generation Opportunity has just released a new study. Tell us about some of the information in that study and what you thought maybe was the most concerning statistics you found.
Sure. So every month, Generation Opportunity releases our Millennial Jobs Report. And what we do is we look at the data from the government and we just say, okay, well, how is this impacting young people in America specifically? And what we find is that the overall unemployment rate is a little bit of kind of a misnomer. When you look at it for young people, the official unemployment rate is 11.3% this month. But what you're not seeing is when calculated for declining labor force participation, it's actually at 15.8%.
Yeah, and I know you are probably talking to a lot of your peers about this. Give us, if you could, kind of a general feeling about the overall mindset for recent college graduates who can't seem to find work when they hear the unemployment picture is getting better.
Yeah, unfortunately for young people, the unemployment picture isn't getting better. And yeah, it is frustrating. We hear from a lot of young people who are, in a way confused because they played the game correctly, right? They went to college and all of a sudden we're finding statistics that show that half of young people aren't even using their college degrees once they graduate. Yet college is the most expensive it's ever been, and the government continues to subsidize student loans without any concern for the actual market of jobs available. So young people are definitely concerned, and what we're trying to do is reach them and show them that freedom from government and economic opportunity are better than the alternative of, say, government dependency or just general lack of opportunity due to all of this trouble that we're having in the economy.
Yeah, a lot of burden is going to be on your shoulders and younger generation shoulders. Corie, the president of your organization, Evan Feinberg, places responsibility for the lack of jobs for the youth squarely on the shoulders of Obamacare. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would agree with that. I think that is the program that is most exacerbating this problem for young people right now. In fact, a recent Congressional Budget Office report showed that Obamacare specifically, and this isn't even to count all of the other government regulations that are causing these problems, Obamacare specifically is going to be responsible for 2 million jobs lost in the labor force over the next several years. And these are the types of jobs that young people would benefit from that are necessary. And you go through and you look at all of these policies, this idea of wanting to raise the minimum wage, that directly hurts young workers who are trying to enter the workforce. So,
Corie, let me back up real quick and talk about the CEO report you just referenced. The 2.5 million people who would be leaving the workforce. Now, Democrats say this is a choice. We just heard Professor Campbell Harvey of Duke University say that's spin, but Democrats are trying to sell this as an advantage for younger folks. What did you think about the spin on this from the Democrats?
Yeah, I think that's a huge misnomer that this is a positive. I actually just wrote a piece in the Daily Caller this week about the CBO report and what the New York Times editorial board said, that this is, a liberating policy. Now, that assumes that liberating means dependency on government while other people pay for you to be, quote, liberated. And, people who support these policies wonder then why there's income inequality, which is at the highest rate since the Great Depression. You cannot raise people up by making them dependent. So no, I don't think it's freeing to say that this is, quote, a choice, that people are, the government is incentivizing dependency on it over social mobility, and that's a huge net negative, especially for young Americans.
Now, for a young person like yourself, do you think it's condescending for somebody like Senator Chuck Schumer of New York to say this is a choice for you, this is better opportunity for you? Do you find that condescending?
I do find it condescending, and I also find it ironic because I, for a long time, was working as an independent contractor in my, early 20s, and I purchased an individual insurance plan on the market that cost me less than $100 a month. I live in Texas. And now, if I were to try to buy the same plan, which was banned, it would be over 200% more expensive. So I don't know who's being liberated, but I don't think it's young people, and I think it's a select few that the government is pandering to, and overall, the whole economy is being dragged down as a result of it.
Now, let's also talk a little bit about the the minimum wage issue, which you just raised. A lot of Democrats would say, hey, this is giving everybody a raise. What's wrong with this?
Yeah, I think that that really is pandering, and it's just such bad economics. There was actually a study from the Employment Institute that was recently released that shows that the $10.10 minimum wage that the president did propose in his State of the Union address would actually kill over 1 million, specifically entry-level jobs, the type of jobs that young people need to get into the labor force. And so it's really easy to say, hey, you'll get a raise without considering all of the economic consequences like prices going up. I mean, it's just such self-evident Econ 101, yet it's very easy to pander with that without thinking through what will actually happen.
And what do you think is, the better way to address both of these issues here, the unemployment question and also the minimum wage issue?
Yeah, well, unemployment, we've seen over and over again that when the government takes from the economy to try and give back and, give random grants, and, you always hear about jobs programs, jobs training programs. The president brought that up in his State of the Union address again. Yet those policies aren't helping. We need to lower regulation. We need to give more money back to the job creators who actually do create wealth and prosperity, and stop this whole top-down model, because that's not working. It's crushing people. It's crushing job creators, young people. We need to give more power back to those of us who can lift ourselves up without government holding us back. So that would include a full repeal of Obamacare, in our opinion. And as for the minimum wage, simply don't raise it. I'm not expecting the government to lower it at this point. There's been so much political pandering, but don't mess with it. We already have enough trouble with young people trying to find jobs. We don't need to be further priced out of the market.
Yeah, you bring up an important point about unemployment. A lot of young folks could be adversely affected if the minimum wage is increased and other folks try to fill those jobs, which traditionally have been held by younger Americans. Corie, real quickly before we let you go, now that we have this new information, this damning information from your report, what do you guys plan to do next? Where are you going to take this information, and how do you plan to rally folks for your cause?
Well, that's a great question. At Generation Opportunity, we are going to be launching a really big advocacy campaign that really focuses on the government's war on youth. The problem that we have is that, we have a government with $17 trillion in debt, $120 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and that's a conservative estimate. We have a government so engaged in generational theft that we're going to be launching a big program partnering with a lot of groups that share our ideals, such as Young Americans for Liberty, to try to reach students on college campuses, to try to reach young professionals under 30, and make them realize that no matter what their ideology is, we need the government to promote programs that are sustainable rather than leaving us with debt when we won't have any benefits from the spending that's currently happening.
Yeah, a lot of young folks are waking up and not liking the picture that they're seeing, particularly in the job market. And Corie, that's why we wanted to have you here. Interesting stuff, and very concerning for Americans, particularly aged 18 to 29 years old, with over a 23% unemployment rate. In Hispanics, over 16%. The youth you talked about, again in your report, much higher unemployment rate than we're being told by those mainline unemployment numbers. And a lot of times those numbers that we rely on so heavily can be very confusing.
Yes, they can. When they don't count labor force participation, it's really not a good measure at all, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's why we appreciate your insight on all this. And of course, we want to hear from you, as always, here on America's Forum. You can tweet me directly at JohnB_Newsmax and at Newsmax TV. And Corie, if anybody wants to tweet you, how can they get a hold of you?
If you want to tweet me personally, I'm at CorieWhalen, and Generation Opportunity, we're at Gen, GENOPP.
All right, fantastic. Corie, thanks so much for being with us. And we'll be right back with more here on America's Forum.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.